So I want to go ahead and talk about the 1992 Eastern Conference Finals between the Chicago Bulls and the Cleveland Cavaliers. What people got to understand is the Bulls Cavs rivalry was very heated, man. It was heated. It was an intense rivalry, man. Almost, but not quite, but just about. It was just as heated as the Knicks and Bulls, man. You know what I mean? Uh, Very underrated um, rivalry. There was a lot of hatred. Um, like man, I used to hate Mark Price, man. I used to hate Mark Price because he was so fucking good, and he could shoot like a motherfucker. He used to bust people's ass. And Mark Price should be in the Hall of Fame, by the way. Uh, he was one of the better point guards in the league at that time, and he'll bust your ass. You know what I'm saying? Can pass the rock, can shoot the rock, shoot from threes, one of the best 3-point shooters of all time. And I don't give a damn what the stats say. You know, fuck the stats. Mark Price should be in the Hall of Fame, no doubt. He was a killer on that court. You know what I mean? Hot Rod Williams, they had Hot Rod Williams. He was tough, tough player. Used to dunk all the time. I didn't like him. I didn't like Brad Daugherty. Uh, I didn't like Craig Elo. Definitely didn't like Craig Elo, man. I hated Danny Ferry. I hated the whole team, bro. Steve Kerr. It was a heated rivalry, man. It was more heated than what people think. Um, so the Cavs, they went to the Eastern Conference Finals. They just played in a very intense and competitive 7-game series against the Celtics. Uh, it was a very tough series. I remember that series could have went either way. Larry Bird was in and out. He had that back issue. So Boston wasn't really full strength, but they were still fucking good though, man. You know what I'm saying? They had Kevin Gamble, Reggie Lewis, fucking Reggie Lewis. Let me tell you something, man. Reggie Lewis was a baller back then, man. He was a hooper. Uh, Truth be told, Reggie Lewis should be in the Hall of Fame too, no doubt. Um, they had Kevin Gamble, Reggie Lewis. Who else did they have, man? Kevin McHale was still at the top of his game. You know what I mean? He was still a good player. Robert Parrish was still a good player. D. Brown was coming into his own. And the Cavs. You know, it went to the limit, man. It went to the limit, and uh, the Cavs won in 7 games, man. But Bulls, I remember Game One, man. The Bulls had their way with the Cavs. Jordan making all kind of crazy shots. Uh, Pippen, you know, playing unbelievably. Uh, Horace Grant dunking all over the place, shooting from outside. Paxson doing his thing, jumper from everywhere. B.J. Armstrong played well again in Game One. Uh, the Bulls just played an excellent game, man. The Cavs couldn't do nothing with the Bulls. They won the game easily. I remember Bulls won Game One easily. Uh, and then I remember after Game One, Phil Jackson said something in the paper. He called the Cavs soft as cotton candy or some shit like that. Uh, I'm not sure if that's exactly what he said, but I know he was calling I think he called the Cavs a bunch of cream puffs. He was saying, their defense was soft, this and that. They weren't a physical team, this and that. Uh, so that got the Cavs fired up, man. It got the Cavs fired up. You know what I'm saying? And I was thinking in my mind, still, we got this series. We took game one easily. Game two is ours. It's in the bag. You know what I mean? And man, it was anything but that. The Cavs came out like jackrabbits, man. Mark Price shooting the ball all over the place, shooting threes. His jumper was wet. Brad Doherty throwing right-handed hook shots in the lane, one-handed jumpers. Larry Nance shooting mid-range shots all over the place. Hot Rod Williams dunking all over the place. The Cavs were just came out on fire. Uh, I think in the first quarter they had a 20-point lead, and the Bulls just played horrible. They couldn't make shit. It was one of the worst Bulls games I've ever seen in my fucking life, man. They got blown the fuck out. Uh, it was embarrassing. Uh, I, I know for a fact the Cavs won by over 20 points. They had like a 26-point lead at one point, I think. It was terrible. It was ugly. Uh, I never seen a team come out with so much intensity in my life. And I remember, I was 13 years old at the time, and I was so devastated by this loss because, uh, you hate to lose a game in the playoffs at home. It's just a terrible feeling. And that year the Bulls were a strong team. Um, they won 67 games. It was the first playoff loss. Uh, I take that back. They lost three games the series before that against the Knicks um, in the second round. But it was a horrible loss. And I remember I didn't talk to anybody for a few days. I was devastated, man. And I remember, game three, the game was on the weekend. I know that for a fact. And the game was on NBC. And I remember being in a bad mood, an angry mood. And I remember the Bulls being in an angry mood too. And the Bulls came out like gangbusters. I mean, Paxson shooting all over the goddamn place. His jumper was wet. You know what I mean? Jordan, his mid-range game was on point. Horace Grant dunking all over the place. Pippen playing beautifully. Uh, B.J. Armstrong played well. The bench looked good. Bobby Hansen, you know what I'm saying, doing his thing. Uh, the defense was on point. And I think in the first quarter, the Bulls had like a 35-6 lead or something, some crazy lead like that. And the Bulls, I remember the Bulls just coming out with so much intensity, man. Jordan was just unbelievable, man. Uh, and the Bulls blew out the Cavs in game three. And I'm thinking, you know, I was feeling good, man. I'm thinking we got this, you know what I'm saying? Uh, so I was feeling good. And I think, I want to say game four um, was the next day. I want to say it was the next day. It was on a Sunday. I could be wrong, but I remember the game was on NBC, and the Bulls did not play well. It was the infamous game where Jordan got elbowed in the face by Danny Ferry, and then Jordan was about to bust him in his motherfucking face, but Craig Elo held him back, and thank God Craig Elo did held him back because Jordan was about to fuck him up. Uh, you know, and I remember that game being so intense in the Gund Arena, Richfield Coliseum. My bad. The crowd was just loud. It was crazy. Man, let me tell you something, man. The Richfield Coliseum used to be crazy, or crazy loud. It wasn't as loud and crazy as the Chicago Stadium. You know what I'm saying? But it used to be it used to get crazy in there, man. I used to be kind of intimidated by that crowd, man. And I remember the Cavs won going away. Uh, Larry Nance played a good game. Doherty was on point. Uh, you know, Terrell Brandon played good that game, I think. Even though at that time he didn't get that much playing time. Um, every time Jordan got the ball, the crowd booed. It was frustrating, man. You know what I'm saying? Jordan still played well as usual, but we lost, and I was devastated, man. I was devastated. You got to remember, man. I was 13 years old. The Bulls meant everything to me, man. The Bulls meant everything to me. Uh, and so Game Five was in Chicago, and I remember being a night game on NBC. It was during the week, and the Bulls played excellent. Jordan, played well. Uh, Pippen doing his thing. The Chicago Stadium crowd was in it. You know what I'm saying? Game Five was a huge game. But Mark Price still played his ass off. He was busting people's ass. You know what I'm saying? Mark Price, that's a tough little white boy, man. I ain't even gonna lie, man. That was a tough little white boy. Uh, he played a good game. That I think he had like 5 3-pointers. Um, but Jordan was Jordan. You know what I'm saying? Um, Paxson jumper was wet as usual. John Paxson. Let me tell you something about John Paxson, man. There wouldn't be no three-peat without John Paxson. You can say the same thing about B.J. Armstrong. The whole team, man. Horace Grant, Scottie Pippen, fucking B.J. Armstrong. And I know it's Michael's team and all that, but without that supporting cast, there's no three-peat at all. There's no three-peat. Uh, without John Paxson, shooting big shots in the playoffs, you know, especially against the 93 Suns, that shot, one of the greatest shots in Bulls history, there's no three-peat. So, quite frankly, that whole team, from Will Perdue, Stacey King, I don't give a damn. The whole fucking team needs their number hanged up in the rafters, okay? Because everybody on that team played a role. They played it well. And every team and every player on that team uh, has a part in those 3 championships for the first three-peat, okay? And so the Bulls won Game 5, man. And something crazy happened at the end of that game, man. Uh, Danny Ferry, it was late in the game. It was garbage time. Danny Ferry was driving the lane. He was trying to dunk the ball, and Stacey King came behind Danny Ferry and just fucking clobbered his ass. Uh, I mean, he fucking leveled Danny Ferry, man. And uh, it was a flagrant foul. It was a hard foul. And Stacey King got ejected. The bench is cleared. Steve Kerr came off the bench, Little ass Steve Kerr came off the bench and showed a fighting spirit, showed some toughness. He stood up to Stacey King, but Stacey King, put his hands had Steve Kerr in that chokehold. You know what I'm saying? But the bench is cleared. It was a heated moment, and you know, uh, I think that play right there was pivotal, and I think that was the turning point of the series because it was retaliation for the fucking shitty ass cheap shot that Danny Ferry did to Jordan with those fucking bullshit ass elbows. Uh, it showed Chicago Bull Nation that or Stacey King was a team player, and he put the team before anything else. And uh, I'll never forget what Steve or Stacey King did that night. And it just showed that he was a good team player, and he had Michael Jordan's back, and you know, after that, man, the sky's the limit. And I knew the Bulls were going to win. And Game Six was another uh, night game. Uh, it was another night game in the week on NBC. Uh, Jordan played excellent as usual. Pippen played well. Paxson doing his thing. You know what I mean? Shooting jumpers all over the place. Let me tell you something, man. John Paxson is the best shooter I've ever seen in my fucking life, man. You know, damn all the stats. Fuck the stats. Fuck Steph Curry just throwing up his bullshit ass, ugly ass form. John Paxson is the best fucking shooter I've ever seen in my fucking life. If somebody put a fucking gun to my head and someone told me to pick a player that can possibly save your life and your life depended on it, I'm fucking picking John Paxson, man, because that fucking dude hit some big shots in the playoffs, man. So, John Paxson, like I said before, man, there's no three-peat without John Paxson, man. But anyways, just an all-around good game in Game Six. Uh, it was an intense game, back and forth. Uh, I think Mark Price played good. Brad Daugherty played good. I think the game went down to the final play. To be honest with you, I think Mark Price threw the ball off his knee, but Game Six could have went either way. And I was thinking in my head, man, I was kind of scared, man, because I was thinking, oh fuck, Game Seven in Chicago. I didn't want to. I didn't want to play a Game Seven, man. Nobody wants to play a Game Seven, man, because Game Sevens, man, they can go either way, and uh, so the Bulls won. I think the Bulls won by 3, Game Six, but it was a tough game, man. It was nerve wracking. I watched every fucking play of that game, dude, and I tell you, man, Game Six could have went either way, man. Mark Price played well. Larry Nance doing his thing. Uh, Larry Nance was a very underrated player, man. Larry Nance, he had that mid-range jumper. He was a good defender. He could block shots. He'll fucking dunk on your ass if he needs to. You know, he had that, like, what I'm saying, like, uh, he had that crazy haircut, crazy hairline. You know what I mean? But he can ball, straight up ball, man. So shout out to Larry Nance. But the Bulls won Game Six, and I remember being so relieved and so happy as a 13-year-old that, hey man, we're going to the fucking finals again. And I was so happy, man. And the Bulls needed to win that Game Six because the Bulls needed rest, and because I believe Portland, they they knocked out the Jazz already, so they had some rest, and it was all set. Bulls and Blazers, man, for the finals. And what a finals, what a memorable finals that was. But that's the end. So of my little 1992 Eastern Conference Finals uh, flashback. Uh, just reminiscing a little bit. But it was an intense series, man. That series wasn't easy, man. People don't understand how good that fucking Cavs team was, man. That fucking Cavs team was good, man. Uh, you know, Craig Elo was fucking good. If it wasn't for the Bulls, the Cavs would have had at least 3 championships, man. That's how fucking good they were, man. Uh, you know, and they stood toe to toe with the Bulls. Uh, and I remember back in like the late 80s, like 88, 89, fucking Cavs used to beat the shit out the Bulls. Like they'll play 6 times in a regular season and they'll win at least 4 of them. You know what I mean? And it all started from the 89 first round series. Uh, Cavs had home court. Cavs were favored to win that fucking series. If it wasn't for that was the series where Game 5 Jordan hit the shot over Craig Elo, and but that series could have went either way, man. People don't understand how good that Cavs team was. People don't understand how good fucking Mark Price was, man. Fucking Mark Price should be in the Hall of Fame. I don't give a fuck what his stats were, his final stats were. He should be in the Hall of Fame. Uh, Tough ass dude. Uh, you know, but the Cavs, man, they were the real deal. But the Bulls, the '92 Bulls was one of my favorite teams of all time, man. The '93 Bulls too holds a special place in my heart as well. Uh, the '91 Bulls was probably the most dominant. The '92 Bulls probably had the most talent. Uh, and the '93 Bulls probably had the most heart. Um, but all three of the teams were good. I'll never forget the first three-peat team. I actually like the first three-peat team better than the second three-peat team. Uh, One of the reasons why is because the first three-peat team was, involved in Chicago Stadium, and I fucking love the Chicago Stadium. Uh, Even though I'd never been there, my dad always promised to take me there. Um, but on TV, man, it just seemed so fucking loud all the time. It just seemed the crowd was always going crazy. The music, the fans were always in it. Now, I'm not saying the fans are not like that at the United Center, but it was just a different type of energy, man, at the old Chicago Stadium, man. I don't know. I can't really explain it. Maybe because it was smaller, it was more compact, and the fans just seemed like they were on top of you. But it was just a different type of energy. It was just a different type of feel, the old Chicago Stadium, man. Uh, you know, I love the United Center too. But you know, the Chicago Stadium, man, it was just different, man. It was different, man. But that's all I got, man. '92 Eastern Conference Finals, and thanks for reminiscing for me.